is January 18th, 2022, and it's 10:01 a.m. Thank you for joining me for another Tuesday talk with church communicators. Today we have a little bit of a light agenda, I guess. Let's see here. What we're going to go over was the BSA update article, week of prayer for Christian unity, the both and to be continued training, Zoom renewals, and then I didn't include, I'm also going to go over worship resources to come. So those are the items scheduled for today, but if there's something else that you guys have a question about, or, always, it's not an interruption. It's not really meant to be a presentation by me. I just got stuff that I want to make sure that I cover with you guys, but if you have something else, then I'd rather address whatever it is that's on your mind. Okay, so the first one was the BSA update article. So I sent you the link, and in the email I mentioned that pastors and communicators are encouraged to share the article in the church newsletter. It doesn't have to be the newsletter. It could even be a mention in social media. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's just one of those items where I think for some churches, if your church didn't have a Boy Scout troop right now, or you weren't involved in the bankruptcy case, you might think like, oh, we don't need to share that. That has nothing to do with us. But it would be a good thing to share if you're emphasizing like how awesome our connection is. So like some conferences, for example, so there was this like humongous settlement suit. Was it $800 million, $80 million, something with an 8 and millions. It was a lot of money. And I know that some of our conferences were not even involved in it, but they also participated because, we're all in this together. It's not like individual churches on their own. Had churches had to deal with this on their own, not only churches, but conferences could have gone bankrupt, could have just completely been wiped out. So it's an amazing thing in that sense, as far as how one way that we take care of each other through the connection. But even more impressive is that through all of this, I don't know if any of you were following up with the news on the Boy Scout case, and it just, from my perspective, and maybe that's because I am United Methodist and I work for the United Methodist Church, but even in some of the reports, the United Methodist Church was leading the way in making sure that the victims were taken care of, were cared for, and that's why part of our list of things that the United Methodist churches are saying, okay, we will do this, we'll contribute financially. Part of what we're doing is saying we will make sure that the victims get to be heard. So that's going to be stuff that you see down the road in the news, in our conference news, potentially district news, I guess, about the resources that are going to be available, articles that shed light on all of this and help the victims be heard. So anyway, so it's a really, in my opinion, it's one of those news pieces where you really could take advantage of it to help shed light on why does it matter that I'm a part of a church. Well, here's a really good reason why. So you got that article, and more stuff is coming, but for now that's what we've got. Then the January 18th through the 25th week of prayer for Christian unity. This is another one of those where there are already worship resources coming, and you don't have to use them during January 18th through the 25th. That's when it was voted that, this is when we'll all recognize that time and provide resources and whatever. But I think some churches even use it during Pentecost. So it doesn't have to be during that time. And obviously it would start today. So if you didn't have information on it, I'm sending it to you in the update email after today's session. So you have it. If you want to get started with it today, you can, and just do, like, instead of using the worship resource, they also have daily personal and family devotions for every day this week. So that would be your whether it's an email that you send out to your congregation or social media message that you send out daily, done. So you'll get that. It's a PDF booklet that you'll be able to download, and you'll get a resource link for English and Spanish. Those are the only two languages that were available that make sense for our conference, but it is available in several other languages. Questions about that one? Okay. Then the both and, it's just same information from before. I'm just providing the link in case you still haven't registered and are thinking about registering. There's the link, it's free. And if you register for the January 27th event, you will get an automatic email response giving you a link that's good for either 60 or 90 days of the part 1 recording. So even if you didn't participate in the first workshop with Jason Moore, you'll get the content, and or your whole church team, whoever it is that you register to participate, will be able to watch the recording and then participate on January 27th at 6 p.m. Arizona time at no cost to your church, to the conference. It's already covered. All right, now Zoom renewals. So there's 2 weeks left. I know I've been mentioning it already that Zoom renewals through the conference are due this month, by the end of the month. And I brought it up again because I got a question asking me, so one of our churches is going to start taking advantage of the conference's discounts, great deal. But they already had Zoom licenses on their own, maybe, or some other way that was, fairly discounted, but not as good of a deal as what we can get. So the question was, their license is paid up through, I think, October. And so they were wondering, can we just start this license in November or start it in October and let them overlap? And then from that point on, we'll stay with the conference. Yes, you definitely can. I always advertise it for January because that's when the dues are due, or the license is due. And what I want to be clear, it often seems really unfair if a church starts a new license in July or November that I can't offer a discount, because I have to pay, not me, but the conference is paying for every one of those licenses for the calendar year. So I have to know in advance, in January is when I'm going to need to renew whatever number of licenses that we need. So that church that I know isn't going to start until November, I already have to pay for their license now. So even if they start in November, it's still going to be $120. Whether you start in January or November and you only use it for 2 months, it's $120. So yes, it's available all the time. If you think you're going to be using it, or that's the plan, we're going to start using it in November, might as well start using it now. It's going to be the same cost, and you'll have that extra license that you could use for whatever, or use that instead of your normal regular license if you're switching over. Questions about that?
Yeah, I had a question about the features that are offered with this license. I think one of the features we're interested in is a transcription, real-time transcription, so people can see at the bottom of the screen or on the side or somewhere. That's one of the advantages that I saw for this license. Is that right?
Yes, I was under the impression that all Zoom paid licenses get that, but maybe not. I know we've got it, and so any church that signs up with the conference will have it as well. So,
okay, I don't know that the pro level has it, but I might have just missed it.
No, I don't know, because we've been using this enterprise level. It's just confusing because we never actually signed up for enterprise. We signed up for pro, and then we got the discount, and then working with Zoom, they upgraded us to where now, as I was checking things out, it's like, well, that's an enterprise license. This whole time, wow, cool, we've got enterprise licenses. So it's much easier to describe it that way, but I just haven't been keeping up with what's the difference between pro and enterprise. So yes, any of our churches that sign up with the conference to use Zoom, and again, we don't make any money on it. There's no benefit to the conference if none of our churches sign up, or every one of our churches signs up with 10 licenses. It's still the same price for us. We don't have any additional negotiating power. They were just really nice to work with us because we're already a Zoom client for several years before the pandemic hit. So we had that relationship, and we're trying to say, look, help us out. Like, our churches are going to need this, and we need to make it affordable, and we're not going to be the only ones, and we can recommend it to other conferences. And anyway, so they worked it out for us. Pretty cool. Okay. Oh, but you know what else? In addition to being an enterprise license, every one of our churches that gets a Zoom license with us also gets the webinar for up to 500 people, which is another piece that's added on to this, but it's not costing any extra than the 120. And every one of our churches gets the toll-free calling. That one we ended up adding in down the road. Still 120 for all churches. It's not 120 for enterprise and webinar and toll-free. It's the whole thing. So it's a great deal. Yeah.
But also, I think typically for an enterprise level license, you get advantages like a custom URL or some other custom features. But I understand we don't get that with this deal because it's a special conference deal. But we do get the transcription. I think that's the one that I see, along with 500 people. If you have 500 people, they're going to be going into your meeting.
Thanks for mentioning that. I never thought about that. You're right. We do get the one custom URL, and all of the licenses under the Desert Southwest Conference are part of that one custom URL. So technically, no. The only thing you could do is get a custom personal URL. So you could do that. So let's say for your church, you're like a kind of a join whenever type of a link. Instead of it, you could customize that so that it's, I think it would be dscumc.zoom. And then maybe like your church phone number or something. I know some of our staff have done something like that, and they just use either their cell phone number. I don't remember what else they used, but so that's one thing you could do that, but that's more of a, it's not like a link that you could set up appointments with it, I suppose. It's different than the custom URL, because with that custom URL that you're referring to, I think it's where we've got a special splash screen. It's got the conference branding with it, and people could join a meeting from there. That's the bells and whistles that I think you were talking about, Mike. Okay. All right, so next item is worship resources to come. So the Christian unity thing, that's one of them that's coming up. I'm going to share my screen real quick to show you the worship page. It's dscumc.org/worship. And I'm going to go ahead and link, this is the PDF that I was talking about for the Christian Unity Week of Prayer thing. So that's what the table of contents is like. I'll link that here, but you don't see it yet, but I'm going to add some information about a worship resource that's coming up, and that's going to be for the Sunday after Easter. I'm just trying to figure out like what additional information I can include in there, like this one, for example, that we had already for the Sunday after Christmas or the Sunday after New Year's. The message was by Bishop Pagia. I'm not 100% sure. It's just I couldn't find my notes on it. I think that Bishop Hagia is providing the sermon for the Sunday after Easter, but I know it's definitely a conference-led thing, so that's why I'm saying I think he is, but we've offered worship before and featured one of our local churches, so it might be one of our pastors at a local church that's offering the sermon. But all that stuff's going to be available here. As soon as I know anything more about who's doing what, I'll have more details in here, and I will definitely bring it up on Tuesday Talks. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay, well, today's only 15 minutes. Wow. Then I guess, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you again for joining me. Don't forget to send me your questions. Chris, you had asked me a question last week, and I totally forgot what it was because it was right before we actually went live, and then I didn't write it down. So if you want,
hold up. We have been getting messages saying, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my notes. on Zoom that they're getting a pop-up